So when you think about Christian athletes, you think about what motivates a Christian athlete to be the best at what he does. And furthermore, you think about what does that question even mean? Like, what is a Christian athlete's definition of being the best at what you do? Because I think it's a little bit different for a Christian athlete than it is for just a normal secular athlete. Because an average athlete who's not really religiously affiliated is going to want to be the best at what he does, or he or she does, well, for the purpose of the spirit of competition, for the purpose of winning the trophy or the belt or whatever the championship in their sport is. And that's kind of how they define being the best at what they do. I think the Christian athlete views it a little bit differently. I think the Christian athlete, I don't know exactly how to put this into words. I think the Christian athlete views being the best at what he does, he or she does, as having a balance of being the best at what you do athletically and balancing that with being the best person you can be spiritually. Well, then the question becomes, what is that balance? That's an impossible one to figure out. And that's why this cross zone experience is going to be so important over the next coming months during the semester, because I think every Christian athlete that I interview and that I talk to is going to have a different answer to that question. How do you balance wanting to be the best at your sport with wanting to be the best person you possibly can spiritually? Are they intertwined to you? Are they separate to you? Do you sometimes have to choose one or the other? And I think every Christian athlete is going to have a different answer to that question. So it's just going to be fun to talk to guys like Aaron Graves. I've got an interview coming up with Aaron Graves. We have it scheduled for next week. It might get put off a little bit longer, but Iowa defensive lineman Aaron Graves is going to talk to me, and I'm going to ask him this very question, among others. For me, if I were a Christian athlete, just for speaking for myself, and I know I'm not a Christian, I'm just playing an actor playing a role here, but I was a Christian at one time, so I kind of know how the mentality is. If I were a Christian athlete, I would, in my mind as much as I could, try to intertwine my faith with being the best at my faith with being the best at athletics, right? Because to me, it would be very hard to strive to be the best at my sport athletically and then have this whole separate life outside of sport where I try to be the best I possibly can spiritually. It's like having two different life jobs, if you see what I'm saying. Like having two different full-time life jobs. And I feel like that would get very stressful. So I feel like, for me, if I were a Christian athlete, I would do my best to mentally compartmentalize it to the point where my sport becomes a part of my faith. You see what I'm saying? That would be the easiest way for me to resolve that issue mentally. But again, it's just going to be fun, just asking different Christian athletes these kind of questions and seeing what they come up with. We're dealing with young people here too, so it's just going to be a lot of fun. But like, the Christian athlete is kind of I don't want to call it a contradiction, but it is in a way, for the simple fact that sports are based on competition. And the Bible kind of teaches the opposite of competition. Now, I'm not saying it's a sin to play a sport by the Bible. It's certainly not. But it's got to be hard to kind of hard to, like, let's say you're a Christian MMA fighter, for example. It's got to be kind of hard to um, compartmentalize the scripture about turning the other cheek with the scripture with kicking someone's ass in an MMA ring, especially for the love of the sport. You see what I'm saying? It's not a sin, but it's got to mess with some Christian athletes' heads, right? Like stuff like that. Now, with football and basketball, that's not as much of an issue. But still, it's a question to be asked. You know what I'm saying? I'm also going to be asking a lot of these guys and these girls, did they come to faith before they became an athlete, or did they become an athlete first and then come to faith later? Because I think that's going to affect a lot of what their perspective is. Me, before I became a Christian, I was not one, right? So I did not grow up in a Christian household or nothing like that. So I became a Christian after I had lived some life. And because of that, I had a different perspective on a lot of things than a lot of Christians did. Just because I came from a different world and I got a different perspective to bring to it. So it's going to be kind of fun to compare and contrast. I'm going to be comparing and contrasting the Christian athletes who have been Christians their whole lives, the answers they give, to the Christian athletes who became Christians when they maybe got into college or in high school or whatever. They didn't start out as Christians. And it's going to be just fun to hear their stories and hear how that affects their athletic life and their academic life and all this sort of stuff. All right, guys. Well, that's all I got for you today for this video, and I will talk to you soon. Come back to Cross Zone because I got some good stuff coming up. Like I said, I got the interview with Aaron Graves, number 95, the defense on the Iowa Hawkeyes football team. That's going to be a great one. I was very pleased when he decided to agree to an interview with me. And I just feel like that's going to be very insightful. I know Aaron Graves, and he's an insightful person. He's a deep thinking person, and he's a good person. And it's going to be just a lot of fun. So that interview is going to drop next week, and I'm going to be making content before then. But you're definitely going to come back and tune in for that one, because that's going to be like a whopper of an interview. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, guys, that's all I got for you today. Talk to you soon.